Hi guys, thank you for tuning in to my second true crime video. Before we get into today's case, I need to give you a quick warning. Throughout the case, we will be discussing the topic of necrophilia, just to make you aware of that if that's something you would want to switch off for. So for today's case, we'll be discussing the tragic murder of Elise Parlor. If we start at the beginning, Elise's parents, David and Liz Parlor, started building a family together when their eldest child, Elise Marie Parlor, was born on the 24th of April 1980. David worked as a contractor and he earned a good wage, meaning that his family could live comfortably. So throughout her childhood, she never really wanted for anything. Elise was the eldest of 4 children. She was a devout Christian who had many artistic talents. She was considered by all that knew her to be extremely gifted, so her school friends thought she was gifted and very intelligent, as did her teachers, her family too. As a person, Elise was filled with love. She loved all of her friends and she loved all of her large family. This love was reciprocated by all that knew her. She attended Arroyo Grande High School, which is a prestigious school in the area. It was the same school that Zac Efron graduated from. At Arroyo Grande High School, she got to know 14-year-old Joseph Fiorella, 16-year-old Jason DeLashmut, and they would ride together on the school bus every day. She also became acquaintances with their friend, 16-year-old Royce Casey, who didn't go to their school. He went to a continuation high school. This was an alternative school for those who may be struggling to graduate from school on time and are in fear of being held back in the grades. Elise trusted the 3 boys but was completely oblivious to the dark satanic intentions that they were hiding. In Elise's local area, crime was on the increase, and this was mainly due to the use of hard drugs in the late 1980s, and it did become a hotbed in America for gangs and serious violent crimes. These were on the rise in the early to mid-1990s. These 3 boys were about to become involved in violent crime themselves, but much more serious than anything else that was occurring in the local area at that time. Surprisingly, the youngest of the 3 boys, 14-year-old Joseph Fiorella, was the first to suggest that they should look into the occult and that they should start practicing Satanism. His 2 friends instantly agreed that they would be willing to learn about the dark occult practices, and so as soon as this was suggested to them, they thought that it would be a good idea. He had a wide knowledge of the occult and Satanism, and he shared this with both Jacob and Royce. Joseph deepened his understanding and knowledge by researching Aleister Crowley, who is a famous English occultist and is often viewed as one of the most pivotal occultists throughout modern history. In addition to researching Crowley, he also purchased a number of books about the occult and also about Satanism. As the boys became more obsessed with the occult practices, this strengthened their bond together. They would also start to meet other Satanists and would break into graveyards after dark, desecrate the graves and steal from the dead. It's evident that if the boys are breaking into graveyards and stealing from the dead, practicing Satanism as well as occult practices, this is only something that's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Other than Satanism, the 3 young boys had another passion. They also had a passion for music, and in particular the genre of death metal. So death metal is a subgenre of heavy metal, the difference being is the lyrical content of death metal songs. So in death metal songs, the lyrics tend to focus on death, murder, torture, suffering, and occult or satanic practices. So the 3 boys wanted to make this a reality. They had the passion for music and they formed their own death metal band, which was called Hatred. Joseph and Jacob were the leaders of the band, and they modelled their band on the famous American band Slayer. Slayer were formed in 1981 and were active for 38 years before eventually breaking up in 2019. Both the lyrics and the album art of Slayer had included controversial topics such as serial killers, hate crimes, murder, genocide, necrophilia, Satanism and torture. So this is one of the bands that were influencing the boys at the time. A number of songs were said to have greatly influenced the 3 boys, 2 of which are called Dead Skin Mask and Postmortem, and these were in their 1986 and 1990 albums. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at some of the lyrics that the boys were listening to at the time. So first of all, Dead Skin Mask from Slayer. This is just a section of the lyrics in there. Graze the skin with my fingertips. The brush of dead cold flesh appeases the means. provoking images, delicate features so smooth, a pleasant fragrance in the light of the moon. So this is a song about an American murderer and body snatcher from the mid-1900s who stole bodies from caskets and collected their bones and skin. So it does have undertones of the dead, it does have lots of images depicting dead bodies, and that was one of the boys' favourite songs. The second song that we'll have a quick look at is Postmortem. So this song explores the preoccupation with death, and the preoccupation with death to allow you to transcend your existence. And this is a short section of the lyrics in the song Postmortem. Tighten the tourniquet around your neck, sifting away the debris of hated life. Cold touch of death begins to chill your spine, seeking life beyond your perishment, repeating words echoing through your mind. The waves of blood are rushing near, pounding at the walls of lies, turning off my sanity, reaching back into my mind, non-rising body from the grave, showing new reality, what I am, what I want, I'm only after death. So the lyrics that you can see in these songs are very dark, especially for a young and what is still developing mind. So Slayer has been said to be a driving force behind the boys' passion for music. However, it's also a gateway into the death metal genre, which would expose the boys to satanic lyrics, heavily surrounding satanic ritual abuse and death. The boys were so deeply involved in their occult teachings and their satanic worship that they picked Elise to be their sacrificial lamb, and little did Elise know what they had planned for her. The heinous crimes that they would commit against Elise Parlor would shock the whole city and the whole of the United States, such as the depravity of what they would go to do. They originally did try to kill Elise, but they failed in their first attempt. It was Joseph, Jacob and an unnamed teenager went for a walk with Elise next to a steep ravine. The unnamed boy pretended to slip down the ravine and convinced Elise to go down and help him, saying that he was stuck. She ran down the ravine to help, and Joseph threw down a hunting knife to him. Joseph and Jacob were then encouraging him and shouting to him, egging him on to stab her to death. He held the knife up in the air, but he froze and he was unable to do it. The three boys then made a joke of this and pretended that it was a prank to Elise, and she trusted them implicitly and believed them, so this was never reported as a crime. But Joseph and Co achieved their goal of sacrifice on their second attempt. The trio, including Royce this time, would plan Elise's murder for over a month. They would meet up, take drugs, worship Satan, listen to Slayer, as well as playing their own death metal music from their band Hatred, whilst deciding on how they would kill Elise. Jacob said that it was harmless at first. We used to meet up, play music and smoke weed. Joseph asked him if he would be down for sacrificing a virgin. Jacob said whatever, because he initially didn't believe it. However, following this question, they actually started planning the murder of Elise. It was Saturday, July the 22nd, 1995, in the early evening. Elise was at home with her family watching television. She received a phone call from Jacob, Joseph and Royce. They said that they had some weed and invited her to go and smoke it with them. She agreed to go meet the three boys. However, she told her parents that she was off to bed. Rather than actually going to bed, she snuck out of the house, and this evening was the last time that her parents would see her alive. This is a problem that a lot of parents have with their teenagers when they'll sneak out the house. It's something that we maybe should promote more. We should promote more trust between parents and children. Elise and the three boys went to a eucalyptus grove at Napomo Mesa, which was only a quarter of a mile away from her home. They smoked some weed, and Elise was relaxed, but the boys were ready and waiting for what they deemed to be the perfect moment. When Elise was relaxed and enjoying herself, Jacob was the first to attack. He removed his belt and wrapped it around Elise's neck. Royce then went on to pin down Elise's arms, and Joseph jumped on her. He drew out a hunting knife, which he used to repeatedly stab Elise in the neck. The other two boys also took it in turn, stabbing Elise in the neck. Elise was screaming for help. She was screaming for her mother. She was crying and praying to God. She wasn't dying, so the boys tried to speed up the process by stamping on her neck as well. So Elise would eventually bleed to death. And when she died, the boys carried out horrific sexual acts. They would take it in turns, raping her body. These horrific acts of necrophilia didn't end on this night. So they would often return to the body over a period of 8 months to continue taking it in turns to rape her. It has been suggested that the 3 boys would do this as often as every week. So this is something that Jacob would brag about to his friends. He would often say that he goes and has sex with a dead body. I find it astonishing that as well, that he's bragging about what he's doing. So he knows it's wrong. He's committing some of the most serious, depraved criminal acts that you can do, and he's happy and boasting about it to people. It's like he doesn't care if he's caught either. Like it's so unusual, especially for such a young boy. Elise's parents would search for 8 months, but themselves and the law enforcement would not be able to find her body. Joseph and Jacob had already started planning to kill again. They told Royce, and they said that Elise would not be their only sacrifice. At this point, Royce denounced Satanism and he estranged himself from the other 2 boys. Royce was now scared and feared for his own life. He no longer wanted to be a part of what the other 2 boys were planning, and he thought that he may be the next victim. Him and his 2 friends were inspired by Slayer, and they always looked at the lyrics, and there's a lyric in one of the songs where it says, "If you're not with us, you may no longer exist." And this scared Royce, because he thought if he didn't exist with them, he wouldn't be allowed to exist in his life, and he feared that the 2 of them would murder him. In March 1996, Casey converted to God and found Christianity. His new religion prompted him to attend a confessional with his preacher. He then at 17 years old decided that he could no longer deal with the guilt. Following his confession in church, Royce handed himself to the police and told them of the horrific murder and rape of Elise Parlor. Royce took the investigators to the eucalyptus grove where she'd been left for 8 months. Poor Elise's body was so badly damaged due to the crimes that had been committed against her, and she was very badly decomposed because she'd been left 8 months. The post-mortem showed that she'd been stabbed at least 12 times in the neck. However, no individual wound was fatal, so it was a combination of bleeding excessively from each wound is what killed Elise, but it would have been a slow and painful death. It is something that she could have been saved from if she was able to get the medical help. It was also found that she'd been raped countless times over a number of months. Following this confession to the police, Royce opened up and provided further information. Royce said that it was Joseph and Jacob who primarily plotted the murder of Elise, and they had the idea to sacrifice her to Satan. She was chosen as she had blonde hair, blue eyes, and was still a virgin. They believed that these features would most appease the King of Darkness and would be the ultimate sin against God. They believed that this sacrifice would glorify Satan, and bizarrely as well, they believed that Satan would then reward them with the power to play their guitars better. If it was seen as the perfect sacrifice, they also believed, and this is in their words, that it would make them crazier, have more nuts, enable them to have a stage presence good enough to be able to turn their band into a professional outfit. So we often hear a lot of different crimes that involve the occult, involve Satanism, and although a lot of people don't believe in this, don't recognise this as like a religious practice, what we've got to be aware of is some people do believe it, and it's their beliefs that become so strong that play a part in the crimes they commit. So it does have to be taken seriously. You might read certain texts, read certain things and find it maybe it's laughable or don't believe it's a thing, but we do need to be aware that some people believe it wholeheartedly. They become very extreme in their beliefs, so we do need to recognise it as well. So following Royce's confession, the other 2 boys were arrested very quickly. Both of them confirmed that they were practicing Satanism and also that they were involved in dark occult practices. They advised that it was being practiced so often that they'd become obsessed with it. So all 3 of the boys confirmed that their love of Slayer and the lyrics in Slayer's songs were the driving force behind the murder of Elise Parlor. The boys confirmed that one of the songs which inspired them to commit this crime the most was a song called Altar of Sacrifice. So the opening lines of this song are as follows: "Waiting the hour, destined to die, here on the table of hell, a figure in white, unknown by man, approaching the altar of death, high priest awaiting, dagger in hand, spilling the pure virgin blood, Satan's slaughter, ceremonial death, answer his every command." So that if you even contemplate them lyrics for a moment, they are very, very dark, and what happens in that song happened to Elise, the way she was sacrificed. If we just consider the lyrics of the song, it's clear that the boys were very troubled. They were listening to very dark music. They were taking the lyrics very seriously, and they were carrying out what was happening in the songs. They were choosing to commit in real life and carry out in real life. And so it is very, very disturbing, that our children may be listening to certain things, may be viewing certain things that we're not aware of. I'm not saying that it's definitely the driving force behind it, because it's up to an individual's interpretation and how they understand it, but maybe we just have to be more mindful of what our children are exposed to. But I can't believe how literally they've taken the lyrics as well. It is very, very scary. The rapes of Elise as well, also corroborated by Joseph's mother. He told his mother that him and his friends were going to rape a dead girl. Also, he was telling people at school that the three of them routinely raped a girl who had died. The three boys weren't believed by their school friends, however, but their school friends did testify once the crime had been exposed and Royce had come forward to the police. Another song with disturbing lyrics by Slayer is a song called Necrophiliac. So this is another song where the lyrics coincide with the crimes that the boys committed. So the following lyrics are taken from the song Necrophiliac, and they are quite disturbing as well. Virgin child, now drained of life, your soul cannot be free, not given the chance to rot in hell. Satan's cross points to hell, the earth I must uncover. A passion grows to feast upon the frozen blood inside her. I feel the urge, the growing need to fuck this sinful corpse. My task's complete, the bitch's soul lies raped in demonic lust. And that is one of the most horrific set of lyrics I've ever heard, if I'm honest. And to think that these three very young impressionable boys were listening to this and carrying out the lyrics. Again, I'm not blaming the band for that. The boys obviously have deep psychological problems that means they would take this seriously. I can't even begin to imagine what the parents are feeling. So they're learning about this band and the lyrics, and that three young boys have been listening to them, taking them seriously as gospel, and committing such a horrible crime to their young daughter. Their daughter at the time was only 15 years old and was sacrificed to Satan so three young boys could learn to play guitar better. It's something you can't comprehend. And it's really difficult, this one, to research as well. Like, I've got young girls myself, and I can't imagine what their parents are going through. It's so upsetting. So Elise's parents attempted to sue Slayer in 1996 after learning of the lyrics about stalking, raping and murdering a virgin. The case was delayed until after the murder trial. In total, the parents would go on to lodge 2 separate cases against Slayer, both of which they would lose. Judge E. Jeffrey Burke wrote that Slayer's lyrics are repulsive, but they do not direct or instruct listeners to commit the acts that resulted in the vicious torture murder of Elise Parlor. So he advised that they were allowed artistic expression and the band was protected under the First Amendment. So basically this is stating that people do have artistic expression, they are protected under free speech. And although the lyrics are disgusting and it is something that is upsetting to read or listen to potentially, it's not an instruction to do this, and they are protected under their First Amendment. Jacob, Joseph and Royce were all sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Later in his prison life, Jacob admitted that it wasn't Slayer's music that was to blame. He acknowledged that their music is destructive, but it was mainly down to Joseph. He said that Joseph was obsessed with Elise and wanted to kill her for his own reasons. So what is happening to Jacob, Joseph and Royce now? So Royce was denied parole in 2016. He reapplied for it earlier this year and he was granted parole suitability. The Board of Parole staff had 90 days to consider the facts, and then the governor had 30 days to decide on what happens to Royce's future. San Luis Obispo County District Attorney Dan Dow wrote to Governor Gavin Newsom, and on the 12th of July this year, Governor Gavin Newsom reversed the parole board's decision. Alan Hutkin, the Parlor family's attorney, said that the family felt okay about Casey's potential release. They said that he's shown remorse, he's been apologetic, and he's done everything right and really tried to reform himself. He said, adding that Casey had been an honour inmate and he'd earned a college degree whilst in prison. Casey's lawyer, Kevin McReynolds, said in a previous statement that, had we known then what we know now about adolescent brain development, Royce's case would likely have remained in the juvenile justice system. Nevertheless, his transformation over the past 24 years has been the most genuine and profound that I have ever witnessed. He has so much to offer and I look forward to learning more from him. So the two others convicted of murder in Elise Parlor also have upcoming parole suitability hearings. For Jacob Delashmut, it's scheduled for December of 2024, and Joseph Fiorella has had a hearing tentatively scheduled for July of 22 because he's just voluntarily waived his right to hearing for 1 year. So he has postponed his own hearing for a year. I don't know if this is on the back of knowing what's just happened to Royce Casey's, because that was also this month, or whether he feels he needs more time to reform. So I find it very, very interesting that the parents have forgiven Royce Casey. He was the guy who came forward. He was the one who told them where the body was and what the crimes that had been committed against their daughter. He also told of the other two criminals who'd been involved with him. So Royce showed remorse in 1996. He was the one who confessed to what had happened. He felt guilty about it. He didn't want it to happen again. Whereas the other two boys were already plotting their next murder. So he's shown remorse 25 years ago, and it is clear that in prison he has reformed himself. He has made necessary changes to try and move on with his life, and it has been suggested that he wants to help other people when he does leave prison, if he is ever granted parole. Obviously it's just been rejected by the governor, so it's going to be another 5 years before he can reapply. As for the other two, I'm not sure how theirs is going to go. It's not until 2024 and next year as well for the other two. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if they're released. I would be surprised if they are released before Royce Casey, because he does seem to have worked on himself the most, and he is the boy who, if it wasn't for him coming forward, they may never ever have found Elise or found their killers. So to conclude, as a case, it was really, really hard to research this one. Like I alluded to earlier in the video, I've got young daughters myself, and I can't imagine the crimes that were committed against Elise. It's so horrible, and their parents have suffered so much. I find it really intriguing how the three boys suggested that it was lyrics from songs that caused them to commit these crimes. And we often hear about this, like games or songs or films that our children are exposed to. So I know there is age ratings on things. So I think we need to treat this on an individual basis. So some children aren't developed enough or don't understand that maybe it's what they're listening to, what they're seeing, or what they're reading isn't real and it's only fiction. Some people don't understand artistic expression. Some people do take things more literally. So I think it's obviously up to the parents as well to see what their children are listening to. I know that can be difficult because obviously children want their privacy and they'll do things themselves. But I think as long as we can point them in the right direction, hopefully they won't be exposed to things that maybe is too dark or too old for their developing brains. But I have found it deeply fascinating to research. It was obviously hard to discuss. There were some horrible things in this case. And in regards to their parents trying to sue Slayer, I can fully understand this because they've learned of these crimes. They've been told by the three children that this is what caused them to do it. These were the lyrics. And I imagine reading the lyrics or hearing them, depending on how they did it, it must have been heartbreaking to see and hear what was happening in these songs had happened to their daughter, who was so innocent and only 15 years old. It must have been truly heartbreaking for them. So another thing I found fascinating, as well as being disturbing, was the boys' view of Satanism and occult practices. So the fact that they believed that if they committed this horrific sacrifice, that they'd be able to maybe turn their band professional, or they would be able to play the guitar better and for longer. The fact that they believe this, it's astonishing. So although we don't believe this, or we could look at these practices and look at these teachings, it might not make sense to us, but we've got to understand that there is people out there who do believe this. So we do need to be mindful of taking it seriously, and if we are aware of anybody being into these practices, that their beliefs can be as strong as other religious beliefs. So yeah, I found that one, bizarre myself. Overall, I found the case really interesting. It was very, very hard to research. There was some really, really disturbing topics in there. It was interesting to read the lyrics of the songs, even though they were dark and disturbing, and to see how this coincided with the crimes that were committed. I know that in later terms, Jacob said that it wasn't the songs, and it was Joseph's obsession with Elise. This may well be true, but originally the three boys did say that it was the lyrics. So I don't know if that was a cover story for their friend at the time. That's something we'll never ever know. But yeah, I did find the case interesting. I hope you all enjoyed it and stayed to the end. If you did, just to let you know that we're going to be uploading 2 crime videos per week. So we're going to stick to the one every Sunday, and there'll also be a midweek one with the details confirmed during this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you could like, subscribe and share this video, that would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Bye.